and welcome to Palm Beach Senior Chat. My name is Marina Ramirez, and I am the owner of Assisting Hands. Today, I'm here with Marissa Debellis. How are you, Marissa?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And we're going to be talking about Medicaid and how do I qualify for Medicaid and how do we apply. But before we start there, Marissa, can you give us some information about you so our watchers can know you better?
Of course. My name is Marissa Debellis. I am an attorney located in Palm Beach Gardens. I'm originally from New York, but I moved down here several years ago. I focus on elder law, and including Medicaid planning and planning for veterans aid and attendance. I also do estate planning, guardianship, special needs planning, and probate and trust administration.
Perfect. That's a huge background. So we have the right person here today. So Marissa, tell me a little bit about long-term Medicaid.
So Medicaid is a federally funded program that's implemented differently by each state. So when I say I'm from New York, I practice Medicaid planning in New York, but it's very, very different there than it is from Florida. Okay. But the Medicaid that we're talking about today is really the long-term care Medicaid. There's different types of Medicaid.
Correct.
There's Medicaid for people that just need medical insurance, but today we're going to be focusing on long-term care, which is needing coverage for home care, assisted living costs, and nursing home.
So just to be clear, many people are confused because they think that Medicare covers long-term care costs.
It doesn't. It covers some. It covers some, as you guys know, but it doesn't cover everything. So, for example, if you are in a rehab facility and Medicare will cover the first 20 days that you're in rehab, providing you've been in the hospital for 3 days and you qualify. But Medicare covers the first 20 days. After day 21 through 100, Medicare only covers a portion, and then there's a copay that's generated every day of about $170 a day.
Okay.
So most people that have Medicare will also have some kind of Medicare supplement.
Correct.
Supplemental insurance, but not all of those are created equal, of course. So some will cover all of the next 21 through 100 days. Some will cover a portion. Some will only cover certain days.
Correct.
So that's when you're going to want to look at, am I going to need Medicaid to then step in and cover those extra out-of-pocket expenses that you might not be able to cover yourself?
And then when people get back home from rehab, Medicare covers skilled care.
Correct.
Basically, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, wound care.
Right.
But they don't cover home care.
Exactly. As you guys know, there's higher levels of care, and Medicare will only cover, there's someone that comes in maybe an hour or two a day, but a lot of people that are coming home from a rehab facility need more than that. They need assistance with all of their ADLs. Yes.
Correct.
Which, for anyone that doesn't know, is activities of daily living. So that would be, standing up, getting out of bed, using the restroom, using the shower, cooking, cleaning, all of those things. So that's when you might need a lower level home health aide to come in and assist with those kind of activities. And that's the type of care that Medicaid will cover.
Medicaid can cover. So what about long-term care insurance?
So a lot of people say, well, I have long-term care insurance, so my care is completely covered. That's usually not true, unfortunately. A lot of the newer policies do not cover the full range, or they cover the full range, but there's a cap on that. So you might have a cap of maybe $3,000 a month, but if you're getting home care or in a nursing home, we all know that the cost of care is much higher than $3,000 a month. So just be aware, and I would even have somebody review your long-term care policy if you have one, just to make sure and see what the cap is, and do I actually need to do some long-term care planning that you might not have thought you had to do previously.
Correct. I always tell my clients to read their policy. And sometimes I even go there and read it with them, and we call the insurance company more than once because you talk to different reps at the insurance company and they will give you different information. Now, going into Medicaid, what are the different types of care for the different types of need?
Sure. So Medicaid is implemented a little bit differently depending on where you are receiving the care.
Okay.
So if you are going to an assisted living facility, assuming that you're in an assisted living facility that accepts Medicaid,
correct,
they have a max coverage of somewhere around $1,200 a month. So most assisted living facilities cost much more than that.
Correct.
So you would be responsible for the remainder. For home care, they basically do an evaluation to determine the amount of care that you need, the number of hours that you need per day, and go from there to determine how much coverage they're going to give you.
But not everybody goes in immediately, right? There's a waiting list.
There's a wait list, exactly. So for home care and for assisted living, there is a wait list depending on the county that you live in. So you have to be aware of that. And that's why I always recommend to people, if you're even thinking, I might need more care coming up in the next few months, or my husband or wife is in a rehab facility right now and going to be coming home in a couple months. What do? Always get them on the wait list. You do not need to be Medicaid resource eligible at that point. You can just call up. They'll ask you a number of questions about the level of care that the person needs and their income and resources.
Okay.
And depending on, where all those questions will determine where you are on the wait list. So the higher level of care that you need, or, if you don't have any resources, or your kids are paying for your care, or, your income is very limited, that will place you much higher on the wait list.
I have heard of many cases of people who've been a long time.
Yes.
And they just don't move up because people with higher needs have come in and move ahead of them.
Absolutely. But keep in mind, though, that while you're on the wait list, if you do have some event where your circumstances change,
correct,
you can always call and get a reevaluation, and that will bump you up higher onto the wait list. But it can be several months.
So that's very important that people know that, so that people make the phone call and make sure to inform Medicaid of their changed circumstances.
Yes.
Very good. And how about, is there a waiting list for nursing homes?
There is no waiting list for nursing homes. I'm really glad you asked that. If you are in a nursing home, or if you're in a rehab and transitioning to, full-time placement in a nursing home, or if you're just deciding it's time, you need to move into maybe a memory care unit or something like that, there is no waiting list for nursing homes. So as long as you are resource eligible, many nursing homes will also take somebody Medicaid pending, which means that they will not require that you pay anything until, when you go in, knowing that you're applying for Medicaid, because Medicaid will pay them retroactively to the day that you are eligible.
Many people say, I just turned over my Social Security check.
Basically.
Yes.
Essentially. There's different income regulations, but essentially, if you're in a nursing home, you contribute your income to the nursing home, and Medicaid picks up the rest of the tab. You are able to keep $130 a month. That's for personal needs like food, haircuts, things like that. But you are able to keep that much. Although if you have a spouse who's living in the community, who's living at home, there's an income diversion, assuming that your spouse makes less than you. We can kind of divert the sick person's income over to the spouse before contributing to the nursing home. So it's a very detailed calculation, but if you have an attorney or somebody helping you with this process, they will inform you of exactly how that diversion would work.
Okay, so now we're getting to the question. How do I qualify for Medicaid?
Okay, so qualifying for Medicaid, I know this sounds crazy, but as an applicant, you're only able to have $2,000 of countable resources. Yes, that sounds very scary.
So what are countable resources?
Exactly. So there are certain resources that Medicaid looks at as countable, and there are some that are off the table that Medicaid does not count. So when we calculate that $2,000, your home is not included in that. A car is not included. And if you have a retirement account, that's in what they call payout status, which anybody that's over 70 and a half is receiving required minimum distributions.
For example, an IRA?
From an IRA or 401k, similar type retirement account. They are already receiving those required distributions. So just by receiving those distributions, that account is actually not a countable asset. So they're only really looking at your liquid assets, your bank accounts, if you have investment accounts, any, checking, savings bonds, things like that. Okay.
How about income?
Income. So there is technically an income limit of about $2,300 a month. However, if your income is higher than that, we have a tool that we can use that's called a Miller Trust or a Qualified Income Trust. That trust allows you to deposit your excess income into that trust, and that trust can still be used for you. But it's a way to say, well, we know that you have too much, but it's going into this special type of trust, so you're still qualified. So don't worry if you have more than $2,300 of income. There are ways to still get you qualified financially.
And is there a look back?
So when you're applying for long-term care Medicaid, there is a 5-year look back, and everybody knows about the 5-year look back period, but no one really knows what it means. So what the 5-year look back period is Medicaid has the ability to look back 5 years into your financial history. They're able to look at all of your accounts, your tax returns, all of those things. And what are they looking for? They're looking to see if you divested yourself or gave away money for the purpose of qualifying for Medicaid. So they're looking at big transactions. They'll look at your tax returns and say, well, they reported $500,000 on this return, but there's only $200,000 the next year. What happened here? Right? They're looking to see if you gave away money. If you have given away money in the last 5 years, Medicaid will penalize you for that. So for every about $9,000 that you transfer to somebody, that's 1 month that Medicaid will not cover your care. So they create this penalty period. So that's, like I said, everyone knows about the 5-year look back, but they don't actually know what it means and what we're looking for. So we have to, that's the benefit of using an attorney for dealing with this type of planning is, or a specialist is looking to see if there have been any gifts. Can we fix that? Can we cure those gifts? Can we work around, what can we do here to get you qualified? But we also work on, moving around, if you don't qualify automatically by having less than $2,000, which, most people that need long-term care probably don't qualify automatically. But what we can do is try to move around those assets in a way that Medicaid allows without incurring these penalties. Okay.
So how is the application process then?
So the application is actually done online. They ask you about your identification, your resources, things like that. And then after they process the online application, they will send you communication and ask you for supporting documents. So they're going to ask you for your copies of your identification, your health insurance, all of your proof of your income, proof of your assets, all of that. And then if we have done any type of planning, supporting documents showing all of that. So it is actually a very involved process that, you definitely want to be working with somebody who's had experience, because we know what Medicaid is looking for.
Okay.
Because if something is sent in and Medicaid looks at it wrong, you have, all you need is the caseworker to not be as educated on a specific situation, then you might get a denial.
And you need to have someone who can talk back to them and,
Exactly.
and have a conversation why that you should be approved.
Absolutely.
So many people are concerned, will the government take their homes?
It is the number one question that I get. Will the government take my house?
Will they?
No. No. So the short answer is no. In Florida, there are homestead laws. As long as it is your primary residence that you are living in, even if you end up going into a nursing home, there are protections there. So Medicaid is not able to attach to your property.
Okay.
There's also ways that we can make sure that there's no, probate or any issues like that, one of which is something called a Ladybird deed. By creating a Ladybird deed, it's saying, well, I know that I want my daughter to have my house after I die, and we certainly want to make sure that Medicaid's nowhere near it. But what the deed does is it says, I'm going to retain a life estate that says I have the ability to live in my house, pay all of the taxes, pay all of the expenses for the rest of my life. I can sell it, I can do whatever I want, but upon my death, it automatically is transferred to my daughter or my children,
Okay.
whoever I name on there. Could be my sister, could be anybody. By doing that, we're really taking it out of the hands of Medicaid and saying, nope, you definitely can't go anywhere near this thing.
So is there if people don't do these things, can Medicaid go after their homes?
So no, the only reason that I bring up doing a Ladybird deed is because Medicaid is technically able to come after assets that are in your probate estate.
Okay.
Okay? And there's only specific assets that will end up being probated. So this is after somebody dies. If they have assets that are in their name alone, meaning no co-owner, no beneficiary, there's no trust, no Ladybird deed, that they might have to be probated through court.
Okay.
Typically, homestead property is not a probate asset.
Okay.
But under very limited circumstances, it might be.
Okay.
So that's why you would definitely want to seek the advice of an attorney just to make sure that you don't have a probate issue for Medicaid to ever possibly come after. But generally, it's not.
Very good.
I have never, ever, ever had a situation where Medicaid took a client's house.
Okay.
Ever, ever.
Okay. So, to wrap things up, why should someone hire a lawyer to go through the Medicare process?
So, the typical client that I work with when it comes to Medicaid is the average American, the average middle class, that have worked their whole lives, that have some savings, that have a house, maybe a couple of investments, a retirement account, and they don't want to have to spend down that money before qualifying for Medicaid. They want to be able to save that money for their kids. So those are the type of people that I really work with to help them move around their assets in a way that you're allowed to for Medicaid in order to qualify. But, especially working with an attorney, you're going to make sure that the application is done properly, like we were saying before, working, directly with DCF and the caseworkers to make sure that everything is done properly. There's also different types of planning that I do when it comes to Medicaid. So what I call crisis planning is something, mom fell, she's in a nursing home, what do we do? She doesn't qualify for Medicaid, but she doesn't have enough to pay for this type
And
of care.
that's the majority of
It's
people.
the average person.
That's the majority
you know,
of people.
they
Yes.
they definitely have more than 2,000, but they don't have enough to continue to pay $10,000 a month for care.
Correct.
So that's someone which would be a crisis situation.
Mhm.
We're in an emergency. What do we do right now? Then we also can do some advanced planning. If you're saying, well, I'm getting a little older, I'm worried that if, God forbid, something happens, I'm probably not, going to be able to afford this type of care. What do you think I should do? We can do advanced planning, which is 5 years out,
Okay.
to avoid this 5-year look back period. And we can use certain types of trusts and vehicles to get assets out of your name preemptively,
And
so that it would be easier for you to qualify later
and that's
on.
the most recommended,
Absolutely.
steps to take, because you never know when you're going to need the care.
Of course.
You never know when you're going to need the care. And
Absolutely.
we find that all the time as well in our business of
Mhm.
home care, that more than half our clients call us because there's been a crisis.
Yes.
And you cannot plan for that. But you can plan for your Medicaid.
Right.
So typically once you apply, how long does it take for an approval?
So I think it's been a little difficult at DCF lately,
Okay.
but I think they're, cracking down a little bit more, but they, I would say it takes a couple months for an approval,
Okay.
but there is a retroactive payback period. So
Okay.
they go back to the date that you are financially eligible. So let's say that you're financially eligible starting October 1st, but the application isn't actually approved until 4 months later.
Okay.
Believe it or that can happen.
Okay.
But that's okay because Medicaid will pay back to October 1st.
Very good.
So back to the day that you're eligible and approved, that they'll pay back retroactively. So,
Well, we have learned a lot today, Marissa. Thank you so much for coming here.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So today we had Marissa Debellis. She's an attorney specializing in elder law and Medicaid, and her information is on our website. And this is Palm Beach Senior Chat. Thank you so much.